Alien woman asks a man to take her and her child as his concubine. Shocking proposal. The planet Luminos 7 was a world of shimmering oceans and golden skies, its cities a blend of advanced technology and natural beauty. It was a place where cultures from across the galaxy converged, creating a vibrant tapestry of life. But beneath its glittering surface, Luminos 7 had its share of darkness, poverty, inequality, and the exploitation of the weak. For Dr. Elias Kane, a human xenobiologist, Luminos 7 was a place of opportunity. He had come to study the planet's unique ecosystems and to learn from its diverse inhabitants. But his peaceful research was interrupted one evening by a knock at his door. When Elias opened it, he was surprised to find an alien woman standing there. She was a Celestian, her skin glowing faintly with a soft, silvery light, and her long, flowing hair shimmered like starlight. Beside her stood a small child, a boy with the same luminous features. Both looked tired and frightened, their eyes filled with desperation. "Please," the woman said, her voice trembling. "I need your help." Elias stepped aside, gesturing for them to come in. "Of course," he said. "What's wrong?" The woman hesitated, then took a deep breath. "My name is Lyra," she said, "and this is my son, Kale. We have nowhere to go. I was hoping you would take us in." Elias frowned. "Take you in? As guests?" Lyra shook her head, her eyes downcast. "As your concubines," she said softly. Elias stared at her, stunned. "What? No, I can't do that. That's not who I am." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Please," she whispered. "I have no one else to turn to. My husband was killed, and we have no family. If you don't help us, we'll be forced into the slave markets. I can't let that happen to my son." Elias's heart ached as he looked at her. He had heard stories of the Celestians, a proud and noble people who had fallen on hard times. Many had been forced into servitude, their beauty and grace exploited by those with power and wealth. The thought of Lyra and her son suffering such a fate was unbearable. "You don't have to do this," Elias said gently. "I'll help you, but not like that. You're not property, Lyra. You're a person, and so is your son." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes wide with surprise. You would help us without demanding anything in return." Elias nodded. "Of course," he said. "Now come on. Let's get you both settled." Over the next few days, Elias did everything he could to make Lyra and Kale comfortable. He gave them his guest room, cooked meals for them, and made sure they had everything they needed. As they spent more time together, they began to talk. Lyra told Elias about her life before. Her husband, a Celestian warrior who had died defending their homeworld, and her son, who was all she had left. She had fled to Luminos 7 in search of safety, but the planet's harsh realities had left her with few options. Elias, in turn, shared his own story, his work as a xenobiologist, his travels across the galaxy, and his belief in the importance of kindness and compassion. He admired Lyra's strength and resilience, and he was determined to help her and Kale build a new life. As the days turned into weeks, Lyra and Kale began to heal. Lyra's radiant glow returned, and Kale's laughter filled the apartment with joy. Elias found himself drawn to them, not out of obligation, but out of genuine affection. He had never expected to find a family, but in Lyra and Kale, he felt a connection that went beyond words. One evening, as they sat together on a balcony watching the stars, Lyra turned to Elias. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." Elias smiled. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "I'm just glad I could help." Lyra hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Elias, I know you said you didn't want us as concubines, but if you're willing, I'd like to stay with you. Not as servants, but as partners, as a family." Elias's heart raced as he looked at her. Are you sure? He asked. I don't want you to feel like you owe me anything. Lyra shook her head. I don't, she said. I want this. You've shown me kindness and respect, and I'll come to care for you. And I know Kale feels the same way. Elias looked at Kale, who was playing with a toy ship nearby. The boy looked up and smiled, his eyes filled with trust and affection. Elias felt a warmth in his chest that he hadn't felt in years. I care for you too, Elias said. Both of you. And if you want to stay, then this is your home. From that moment on, Elias, Lyra, and Kale became a family. They faced challenges together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Elias continued his research, while Lyra used her knowledge of Celestian culture to help him understand the planet's ecosystems. Kale, full of energy and curiosity, brought joy and laughter to their lives. But their peace was not without challenges. One night, as they prepared for bed, they heard a loud crash outside. Elias grabbed a weapon and went to investigate, only to find that their home had been targeted by a group of thieves. The fight was fierce, but Elias, Lyra, and Kale worked together to protect their home. In the aftermath, as they tended to each other's wounds, Elias turned to Lyra. We can't stay here, he said. It's not safe. Lyra nodded. I know, she said. But where will we go? Elias smiled. I've been thinking about that, he said. There's a colony on the edge of the galaxy, a place where we can start over. What do you think? Lyra's eyes lit up. I think it's perfect, she said. Together, they packed up their belongings and set off for the colony. The journey was long and arduous, but they faced it together, their love giving them the strength to overcome any obstacle. When they finally arrived, they were greeted by a community of outcasts and dreamers, people who, like them, had found hope in the stars. The colony became their new home, a place where they could build a future free from fear and hardship. Elias opened a small research lab, while Lyra taught Celestian art and culture to the colony's children. Kale, full of energy and curiosity, thrived in the new environment, his laughter a constant reminder of the joy they had found together. One evening, as they stood on a hill overlooking the colony, Lyra turned to Elias. Thank you, she said softly, for giving us a second chance. Elias smiled, his eyes reflecting the starlight. You've given me more than I ever could have imagined, he said. You show me the true meaning of love and family. Lyra reached out and took his hand, her touch warm and reassuring. We are a family, she said, and as long as we're together, we can face anything. As they stood there, hand in hand, watching the stars twinkle above, Lyra felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She had lost so much, but she had also found something precious, a love that transcended species and worlds, a bond that would endure for a lifetime. And in that moment, under the vast expanse of the galaxy, Lyra knew that she was home.